Do you know if we have Councilmember Glover on the phone yet?
I am on the phone.
Thank you for answering that question, Councilmember Glover.
You are very welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to the Mesa City Council study session. Actually, prior to the beginning of the council study session, I should mention today's date is June the 15th. We will hold an Eastmark Community Facilities District Number 1 board meeting. So welcome to that meeting. I will again note for the record that Councilmember Glover is present on the telephone. The first item on the agenda for this meeting is items from citizens present. Ms. Mickelson, do we have any requests to speak?
No request, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the prior meeting. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Item number 3A on the agenda is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the proposed modification to the Community Facilities District Number 1 secondary property tax rate. I know we have Chief Financial Officer Mike Kennington present and with some staff. Gentlemen, please tell us what we need to know about this item.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. Like you said, my name is Mike Kennington, the District Treasurer. We have Ryan Wimmer, our Deputy Budget Director, and Jim Smith as well. Also in the crowd, we have representatives from DMB and from Gus Rosenfeld, the CFD Council. So today what we wanted to bring and get direction really from the board is to talk about some of the changes that happen that are going to take effect this year, this tax year. So historically the developer has paid for infrastructure, and we paid for that through the issuance of bonds through the CFD. Those have been two types of bonds, the special assessment bonds and the general obligation bonds. Specifically, the general obligation bonds are paid for through the secondary tax rate. So the secondary tax rate historically has been based off of the full cash value, which is the market value. Primary property tax has been based on a limited property value, which has historically been lower than the full cash value. In November 2012, the voters decided to amend the Constitution to, in large part, to simplify this tax system by only having one assessed value instead of the two that we've historically seen. So now both primary property tax and secondary property tax are going to be based on one limited assessed value. So for cities or CFDs that are fixed or expect one fixed rate, now they're going to be against a smaller assessed value. So if they plan and programmed at a higher rate, now that gets lowered to a new value, the limited assessed value. Now, if we can scroll to this table here, you can see the difference in the pre-amendment, the secondary NAV of $25 million, and now the post-amendment of $19.7 million with a new limited net assessed value. The $3 taken against both will result in a different property tax levy between the $760,000 and the $592,000. What's being proposed today and the direction we're seeking from the board is to allow that $3 to adjust every year. And this year it would be $385, the proposal to maintain that levy so that the average homeowner wouldn't see a change in the dollars coming out of their pockets. It would just be an adjustment of the rate. So today we're looking for the direction on that for July 1st. July 1st is where we're going to bring to the board to consider the levy. We're going to also bring to the board to consider the GO bond resolution. Today we're looking at the SAD and the tentative.
Thank you. Mr. Richens.
So we're just changing the elements of the equation, but we're still collecting the same amount of money.
That's exactly right.
So we can service the debt. Okay.
Yep. Tax levy stays the same.
Move to approve this item.
I think before we do that, just the way that this is agendized is...
that's a different issue.
Oh, maybe you're right. Hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on the secondary proposed modifications.
Yeah.
The feasibility, item 4 is a different item, isn't it?
Right. Right now we're on item 3A, hearing the presentation regarding the secondary property tax rate base changes. So, Ms. Spinner, is this an action item?
Let me ask Mike. Mike, are you asking them for approval to adjust the tax rate, but then we're going to have in item 4A, we're having a public hearing on the feasibility report and the issuance. So you are looking for direction.
Just want to make sure you understood
Direction.
the change.
Yeah. So you don't need a formal vote, just direction
You're
to
comfortable
go
moving
ahead.
in this direction.
Yeah. And this doesn't affect, again, the special assessment that we have on the agenda. The special assessment is $1 per lot, and it doesn't get impacted by the rate change.
Okay.
It's the GO bond.
We just want to be clear to the council. So when this CFD was set up, there was a specific form, as you were mentioning, council member, there was a specific formula, if you would, just like we do with our own property taxes in the city. You have a determined assessed valuation, then you have a stated rate, tax rate that you use to apply to create the tax levy. We've always talked about the tax levy because that's how we communicate to our residents. What's this going to cost you? What's the tax bill going to look like? And what's happened is because of some changes in state statute, the assessed valuation has changed. And so it's different. The value upon which that rate gets applied has been changed by state law. So we were trying to get back to a point where we could speak to the CFDs like we do with our own secondary property tax and focus on the amount of tax it's going to generate to meet debt obligations and making sure that's consistent with the amount of levy that was presumed in the previous deal. And so that's what we're trying to do to you. And we've come up with a formula which we believe achieves that pretty close in principle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
My
And so
explanation was a lot more clear.
it is. I just want to be very clear for the record about what we're doing, so that right now that whole issue and that levy will come up at a later point. But in order to put all that in place, we want to make sure the council was recognized and would give us the direction to move this way.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Mr. Finter.
Quick question. I appreciate the clarity. I get it. How about the residents out there? What kind of outreach effort, what are we doing to help them understand?
Great question. We've partnered with DMB to create citizen outreach, and so they've currently developed some communication that they're going to get out to their residents, I believe, next week, and let them know about the July 1st date as well, that we're going to have an open hearing, and let them understand what's going on.
Now, Councilmember, to that point, you all correct me if I'm wrong. I remember in a call we had, at this time, this change would affect how many different property owners? Do we have that number? It was a pretty small.
It was somewhere in the range of 300. I don't remember exactly. I think
Okay.
DMB was 300 approximately. And just also,
Shaking their head back there.
yeah, and we'll come back to you July 1st actually to. That's the decision point. And then after that, we'll come back with an amendment to the development agreement to also further solidify this direction. But we need direction now to know really what to do on July 1st.
The alternative to this, council, was the consideration of changing the rate. And at some point when you come to council, we really kind of emphasize the idea that the rate would maintain at $3. Again, presumed at an assessed valuation that we presume would continue throughout the life of the bonds. But now that assessed valuation has been changed by the state and how that's calculated, that would have moved the rate significantly higher than $3. It would have been like $3.70, 80 cents. So that would have been a big number to adjust with. And we just felt like it's easier to communicate about levy and about the cost and work on it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Well, and I think the thing that's important to recognize is that it's not costing the residents more money, in essence.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's right.
Great. Any other comments, council? Thank you. If not, we'll move to the next item, which is to conduct a public hearing on and consider a feasibility report relative to a proposed project to be financed by the issuance of special assessment revenue bonds of the Eastmark Community Facility Districts Number 1, Assessment District Number 4. So I now declare the public hearing open. Ms. Mickelson, do we have any speakers?
No request, Mayor.
Thank you. Council, any comments or questions on this item?
Yeah, what's the project? Is it the tax rate thing?
No.
It's
Mike.
This the special assessment is for Crisman Road and for Ray Road, parts of the sewage there. So it's about $1 million bond that we're going to be issuing.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Good question. If there are no additional comments, council, and seeing that there's no public speakers or requests for speakers, I will now declare the public hearing closed. We do have two action items on our agenda, agenda item 5A and 5B. They are connected and the subject of the presentation that we just heard. If there's no objection on the part of council, we'll just treat them as consent agenda items and have one vote for both items. Is that okay with everyone? I'll now invite Kevin Christopher to come forward and read those items so that they are in the record. Kevin, will please read 5A and 5B, please.
Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda. Item 5A, approving the feasibility report relating to the acquisition and financing of certain improvements within the Eastmark Community Facilities District Number 1, declaring its intention to acquire certain public infrastructure improvements described in the feasibility report, forming a special assessment district number 4, determining that special assessment revenue bonds will be issued to finance the costs and expenses thereof, declaring the improvements to be of more than local or ordinary public benefit, and that the cost of said improvements will be assessed upon assessment district number 4, and ordering the public infrastructure projects be acquired and performed within the Eastmark Community Facilities District number 1. Also, item 5B, approving the Eastmark Community Facilities District number 1 fiscal year 2015-16 tentative budget, and setting July 1st, 2015 as the date for the public hearing and action on the final budget and the tax levy. Mayor and council members, these are the items in the consent agenda.
Thank you, Kevin. Ms. Mickelson, do we have any speakers that have requested to speak on items 5A or 5B?
No request, Mayor.
Thank you. Council? It's been moved and seconded for approval of 5A and 5B. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Glover. Are there any opposed? Okay, the item passes unanimously. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn the Eastmark Community Facility District number 1 board meeting. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.